Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a very warm welcome to the EOTA Stakeholder Forum, Innovative Construction Products, Global Markets and Sustainability. We are happy so many of you, over 300 to be precise, have joined us online from across Europe and around the world. A very special welcome to the expert speakers and panelists who are here with us in our studio in Brussels to spearhead the discussion. Also, good evening to Professor Gutt from Swinburne University in Australia, who will join us later for our Global Markets panel remotely. In 2023, we celebrate 30 years of the European single market. It has been a resounding social and economic success. It has brought people from across Europe closer together, and this stakeholder conference and the EOTA network are two excellent cases in point. Zooming in on the construction industry, we can look back on an even longer history of harmonization, and as I think we are all aware, we are about to open a new chapter in this story with the revision of the Construction Products Regulation, CPR for short. The European Technical Assessment Route, or ETA route as we used to call it, is a key feature of the current and future network for the construction products. It allows manufacturers to place innovative construction products on the market safely with CE marking based on independent expert assessment. As we move forward, EOTA is committed to making the ETA route instrumental in fostering innovation, promoting sustainability, and strengthening EU competitiveness in global markets. A morning of diverse keynotes and panel discussions awaits us. In the first session, we will explore how we can promote sustainability under the CPR, particularly through the ETA route. And for our second session, we will leave the EU context to look at the ETA route from a global perspective. On a practical note, there will be times for questions and answers after each panel. You will find a link to post your questions in the description below this video. So please take an active part in the discussion. And now it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage the President of EOTA, Sebastian Wohl.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome also from my side to the really impressive number of participants joining us online today and to my fellow speakers here in the studio. It's truly a pleasure to have you all with us today. Reflecting on the agenda we have set for today, I realized that we placed not one, but two major societal trends into the heart of our discussion: sustainability and global markets. These trends have a powerful impact on our world today and will continue to do so in the future. As with all big projects, the challenge lies into breaking them down into small, manageable steps in order to move us forward. This is precisely what we are embarking on today, and I'm thrilled to have so many exceptional guests and panelists to help us navigate these challenging questions. Before we dive into the first session, I would like to give you a short overview of EOTA core activities in 2023. First, and the most important one, is the joint action plan that European Commission and EOTA agreed upon in December last year. Within this 1 year, we reviewed 124 European assessment documents, and I'm very proud to say that we found solutions for all of them. A substantial number of EADs have already been cited in Official Journal of the European Union, and even more are green-lighted for citation. This is, to me, the testament to what we can achieve when we cooperate openly at the European level. This is also the occasion I would like to use to thank to all stakeholders, the European Commission services, the industry, the manufacturers, of course, the technical assessment bodies, and the other parties for joining this effort. For EOTA, collaboration is the way forward, and of course, especially when we meet new challenges. The excellent results that we have achieved under the action plan wouldn't have been possible without improved quality control system that EOTA have implemented over the last 4 years. EOTA and the European Commission have been successful in streamlining procedures as regards the timelines and feedback loops. Something which we are very proud to share, and we are committed to continue on this path. Now, let's turn our attention to the new Construction Products Regulation, new CPR. Our primary goal here is to ensure a seamless transition, making sure that EAD work will continue without interruption to ensure the best results for the industry. For this, we engaged in a dialogue with the European Commission, and we are happy to find that they share the same goal. As we look forward, our ambition is to offer even more comprehensive service to the construction industry. One central topic in this respect is a green, innovative product. EOTA has a wealth of experience to offer regarding assessment of reused, recycled, or renewable construction products, which very often need a tailored approach. EOTA is also ready to take on new challenges like implementation of life cycle assessment in the EADs and ETAs. And this leads us perfectly to the first session of today. However, before we start, Mr. Jorge Jimeno, the head of Spanish Council Presidency team responsible for the review of the CPR, has recorded a message, a greetings to us. Let's watch it first.
Good morning, buenos días. My name is Jorge Jimeno, and I have been working for the Spanish Ministry of Industry for about 7 years now. During this time, I have been in contact with the current construction product regulations, as well as other technical regulations. Therefore, I am pretty aware of the importance of the European legislation, the CE marking, and the particularities of the construction products. On behalf of the Spanish Presidency, I would like to thank EOTA for inviting us to this year's Stakeholder Forum. Due to a parallel meeting with the Council, I am extending my greetings in this way. As you probably know, Spain took over the Council Presidency in July. 1 month before, in June, during the Swedish Presidency, the Council approved a mandate with the proposal for the future construction product regulation. We think that it is a very good proposal, and we are now negotiating with it as a compromise text. Our task now is to obtain a final text together with our partners from the European Parliament and the European Commission. Our goal is to have this final text ready by the end of this year, and we are working very hard to try to achieve it. I will now speak briefly about EOTA. EOTA and the European Technical Assessment Route are key elements of the current CPR, and we are happy to see that this route will be further developed under the future regulation to support the CE marking of innovative products. This route is one of the tools to improve the single market of the EU. Another aspect to note is that the Member States, including Spain, are fully aware of the Green Deal goals, and therefore the proposal of the new CPR will contain provisions for the sustainability and the construction products. Another aspect to note is that the priority for the Member States is to define a balanced framework and to ensure a smooth transition between the current and the future regulation. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a very fruitful meeting.
Our first two speakers have set the scene for us with their welcome. Thank you for this. Let's now dive right into our sustainability session. I welcome our first keynote speaker to the floor, Dieter de Lathouwer. He is chair of Century 350, Sustainability of Construction Works, and a seasoned policy advisor. He will take us on a journey towards a more sustainable construction sector.
Thank you for this kind introduction, and I'm happy to speak at this forum. My speech will focus on the CPR and the environmental product data as essential part of the future for sustainable construction. Now, I dived into my history of being a policymaker, and I found this quote. I think it's now just 15 years old. It's on the market. Only construction products and materials are available for which manufacturer declares the global environmental impact over the entire life cycle. So it was just for me, it was a surprise that even 15 years ago, already we were aiming at that. And I think with the CPR being discussed, the revision right now, we are on the right track to really achieve this. For those in the virtual room and attending this, just I hope that most of you know what an EPD and what it is, and when we talk about environmental characteristics. But just as a reminder, this is a typical, I would say even 1/3 of a table with environmental impacts over the life cycle, and very typical. It's a number of impact categories on the vertical X, and it's also very important for the construction sector, split up in different life cycle stages. Okay. Also, because of my background as chair of CENTIC 350, I thought it was interesting just to highlight some aspects of CENTIC 350, because of course we are dealing with the same essential characteristics, which we will try to prepare and prepare the correct framework to declare them in the Declaration of Performance. So what I wanted to highlight in this slide is especially that we have the EN 15804, which I hope that I would say everyone involved with declaring environmental characteristics will use as reference, and also the European Commission. I'm happy to acknowledge or to see that they have included them in the standardization requests and all the ongoing discussions. Also interesting is that the governing body, the CEN-BT, has issued a decision to automatically inform CENTIC 350 of every standardization request and also every product TC who is starting to work on these essential characteristics environmental data to inform us, so to allow us to establish a liaison. I think this is a very good way of working. So manufacturers, everyone involved in the CPR is facing a lot of things these days. We have carbon, we know that for already a couple of years. Waste Framework Directive, we have everything, a whole package regarding life cycle assessments, which I'm happy personally that has been now acknowledged at policy level. We have the CPR, also in the EPBD revision, there's probably, it's under discussion, probably a mandatory global warming potential declaration. We have levels, eco-design, green claims, I will not list all of them. And then, of course, a very important piece of policy when I speak to manufacturers and companies, industry, is the EU taxonomy, which as of today is really being a driver for the industry. Also there, a reference is made to 15804 and 15978. The whole thing on circularity, and let's not forget digitalization. And all this in the framework of changing policies on a global level, the United States, China, who's supporting their industry in different ways, as the European Union is doing. So what I want to say here is that it is a chaotic period. Let's face it. And every transition comes with uncertainty, because I hear a lot of complaints or sighs like, what should we do? Well, there is uncertainty, and let's deal with it. So here, my personal opinion is that we should now focus, and it's definitely related to this construction products regulation. Let's focus also on the implementation. There's a lot on the table, there's a lot on our plates. Let's focus, what does it mean in real life for industry, for EOTA, for CEN, how do we deal with it? And also, don't wait for stability, because I don't think, I've been saying this 5 years ago, we're 5 years later, I don't think a lot of stability will come. So just, as I said, let's move forward. Let's stay positive, find opportunities. In this turmoil, let's find opportunities. Not always easy, but let's stand up. Let's think about being an exemplary role. Let's think about a level playing field it can bring. And so it's an invitation, I think, to every, and I see that it exists, and a lot of industry and manufacturers are doing it, seeing what can this mean for me? Do I need to adapt? In what way? And how can I find assets and change my, my markets or find the necessary opportunities? Okay, maybe this is one of my most important slides. It's challenges which I see regarding environmental data and the CPR revision. The first one is understanding the complex CPR. How can we bring this to the whole wide range of stakeholders? We are moving from, and I've said it in different other speeches also, we are moving from EPD, as we know it, Environmental Product Declaration, to the Declaration of Performance. And this has consequences. Consequences are, by example, that we are moving from a realistic average representative set of data to a worst case often, because every product on the market should comply to it. So we are also moving to a common 5-year validity period to something that must be question mark continuously being updated. We're moving to European scenarios, and there's a question mark of what with the metadata which is in the EPD as a document, and now will it move to the DOP? How will this be dealt with? We have the CPCR developments, the timeline. So now we have a whole set of program operators who are at the same time and providing data, trying to harmonize it. There's a new process in place. There will be coexisting periods. A lot of things will happen at the same time. How will we align these data to, and let's not forget the final goal, to make this work at building level, that we have consistent data. And that's what I said here. Consistency at building level is crucial and should be in our mind at all time. Big data. I don't see it a lot, but it's something which we really should think of. When I speak to big manufacturers, they have a portfolio of 8,000 products, sometimes more, which is changing regularly. How will we deal with it? Not with a static database, but that's for sure. So how will we deal with it? And also, how can we take advantage of it? Accuracy, I will skip this one. Okay, something which is also coming back, the set of indicators. In TC350, we have decided we have a core set of indicators, we have an additional set of indicators. Now in the CPR and in the EPBD, of course, it's for the time being under discussion, limited to mandatory global warming potential. As a policymaker head now, I think let's be careful, because this will have two disadvantages. First of all, it will lead to cherry picking if there's no member states legislation. Secondly, what will we do at building level? So there will be sets with only global warming potential and with other data. So please, policymakers, go for the full set. It's not so much more effort. What to do with market surveillance, and how all the manufacturers are going to collect data from their suppliers if there's no rule in the CPR to more or less force or oblige them to provide environmental data. And let's focus on the implementation. A lot of question marks there. I see a lot of, not just implementation is not just saying what to do, it's also taking care of how to do it and listen to the needs of everyone involved. So this is for those, I think the presentations will be shared afterwards. So this is a slide just to illustrate the differentiation from moving from EPD to the Declaration of Performance. I explained this in my previous slide. Consistency at building level. Within CEN TC350, as I explained, we have like the decision from CEN-BT that TC350 is informed and closely liaised to any initiative within CEN, allowing us to comment on the product TC developing rules for life cycle assessment or the environmental product declaration. Of course, and luckily, CEN TC350 and CEN is not alone in this world. And we have also other institutions, associations, organizations dealing with this. We have EOTA, we have Senelec, we have other products, we have the construction products regulation. So we have the stepwise approach. So not all products will be dealt with at the same time. And we have a big non-harmonized zone, probably. If you think on the architect, the engineer, the policymaker who wants to issue green public procurement, how will they have a consistent set of data? How will they make sure, or how will we make sure that these data are aligned and can be used to aggregate at building level? I think this is a big challenge and should be in our heads at all time. This is just an example, and just to refer to the EU transition pathway to the European, to the construction sector, sustainable construction sector. At some points, it's a vague document, but it's also a good illustration of the challenges ahead. If I just take the transition to a digital world, digital construction world, then you see here in this slide what a challenge it is and how much parallel actions there are. And I will come to this in the next slide and the next slide and the next slide. Where is the coordination? Who will make sure not just to say this needs to be done, just trickle down, but is there an overview? Can people see, okay, are we aware of this? Has this started? What is the future? Just a small slide to illustrate also from another perspective. Please don't stick to just global warming potential and carbon. Buildings and construction works have a really long lifespan, so take those indicators, a whole set of indicators into account. It's little additional effort for the industry, and I think most of them are willing to take it. So step on and think of the long lifespan and don't have a too narrow vision. Yeah, a lot of important things. I'm happy to be able to express it. But another idea, and of course it takes a lot of water to the sea, but the idea of European Buildings Directive was on the table for some time. In my view, it has a little bit disappeared. I still think it's a very valuable thought, and it would be an invitation for me to policymakers, both at European level, at member state level, to take this into account. There has been a poll, I think last year, where there's a big will and identifying member states that we must have targets, goals at building level. If you don't have goals, targets, we cannot score. Industry cannot put them in advance. And a buildings directive could still allow this. Green public procurement, skip this. Okay, renovation. Here I thought let's take my own example. We recently acquired a house. I think it is from the end of 19th century. Let's renovate it. It was in a good state. Whew, what a challenge. It's good in words, but insulation, okay, it's not, if it's classified from the outside, you need to do it on the inside, and then you're starting for a whole set of cascading efforts to be done. You need to change the heating, and you need to, maybe you need to change and then you can change the insulation of the floor, and but then, okay, it's an investment. You also want, as an individual, return on investment, but what if it's sufficiently good, but not good enough for future policy? So it's very, very challenging. And all this at a renovation rate, I took the example in Belgium of, I think it's now a little bit more than 1%. Okay, we really need supportive measures, policy to get this done, and probably also some funding. I will skip this one for the sake of time. Yeah, so we need, it may be strangely formulated, but I think we, at least everyone who I talked to, we need some feeling of, is this under control? A lot of people also in this room, in the audience, have a lot of questions. What will be the impacts of declaration of performance instead of an EPD? How will we deal with it? How will this be organized? How will, and this, all these questions, are they being taken into account? Who is listening to them? There is something like the what is it named? The High Level Construction Forum. That's mainly, in my view, quite one-directional. So can we make this a real forum? Can we make this like a real, where actions and interests are noted and can be followed up? Could be interesting. For this slide, just states what I see as missing for small and medium enterprises is not what they should do, but what are the consequences for them? Who in the company is involved? What will it bring as additional cost in the governancing of this change? We have done in Belgium, we have done a small example, but I think this is key. So I'm coming to my two last slides in a nutshell. Life cycle assessment has become mainstream right now. I see it in a lot of policy, so I think we should prepare for it. It has consequences. I'm happy that EPD has come and uptaken at European level, but it has consequences. Let's focus on the implementation. Don't add a lot of new things to the plate. Let's see what are the needs of all stakeholders. Let's think, also an invitation to the European Commission, but also to EOTA, to everyone involved in this. We have come from the CPR, from very economic instruments, and we are moving, as of today, to also have a focus on environment. This should be reflected by the stakeholders around the table. So how do we get the right stakeholders around the table in a guaranteed way? Let's think about a Sustainable Buildings Directive as an add-on to the environment, energy of buildings performance. Last slide for the people in the room. Competitiveness on the long run, it's my conviction, will not be achieved, just like in education, will not be achieved by lowering the bar. But set realistic horizons and work to that. Stand up to your values. It's not just about indicators, it's not just about performance and goals. It's about values, people, getting people motivated, on board, and stand up to who you are. And to do that, I think we need much more tasty carrots and much less sticks. This was it for my speech of today, and thank you again.
Thank you, Dieter. More carrots, less sticks. Every change brings uncertainties. Every change brings opportunities. Let's find the opportunities. Next up is André Glossmann. He is a technical officer at DIBT in Germany and a long-standing contributor to EOTA's sustainability work. He will give us an outlook on what sustainability assessment in the ETA route can mean.
Thank you, Carmen, for the introduction. A warm welcome to all of you here in the audience and also the participants online. I just would like to introduce myself again and add a couple of things. I'm André Glossmann from DIBT, the German technical assessment body, and I'm working there in the section Environmental Protection and Sustainability. Now, I'm following the discussions on sustainability in the construction sector for over 10 years now, and during this time I became member of EOTA Project Team 12, which deals with Basic Work Requirement 7. Also, EOTA delegate to the subgroup Environmental Sustainability of the Construction Products Technical Acquis Process, CPR Technical Acquis Process, and I'm member of the German Mirror Committee of CENTIC 350, where Dieter, just talking to you, is the chair of the CENTIC at CEN. Now, the title of my presentation will be Sustainability Assessment in the ETA route, and I think that's a good follow-up on the first dive Dieter just gave us into this quite complex topic. Now, I'm going to talk about the current state of play, or let's say how EOTA tackled the sustainability assessments in EADs so far. I am then going to highlight what framework conditions are actually needed to get the ETA route started. And last but not least, some benefits of the sustainability assessment in the ETA route. Now, we all know the wording of Basic Work Requirement 7 of the current Construction Products Regulation, which is addressing topics like reuse, recyclability, durability, or the use of environmentally friendly construction products. What is important to underline again from my point of view, regardless of all the current discussions and developments concerning a future construction products regulation, is the fact that the current construction products regulation already provides the possibility to address performances according to Basic Work Requirement 7. You could also say that there was a political will to include the sustainability assessments in the CPR. So I think that's quite important to highlight here at the slide. Now, how has Basic Work Requirement 7 been addressed by EOTA. With the release of the Construction Products Regulation and the new approach at that time regarding the Basic Work Requirement 7, EOTA established Project Team 12 in 2011. The aim was and still is to clarify how to deal with the Basic Work Requirement 7, Sustainable Use of Natural Resources, BWR7, in EADs and ETAs. In 2017, EOTA published or finalized model clauses for life cycle assessment or on how to integrate Basic Work Requirement 7 in EADs. And these clauses rely on life cycle assessment according to EN 15804. And just as a reminder, the standard EN 15804, Dieter was just talking about it, describes the core rules of environmental product declarations. Now you could say EOTA was a pioneer or ahead of its time, a pioneer, because the model clauses of EOTA Project Team 12 from 2017 were in principle already quite similar to the framework conditions now being discussed in subgroup or in the subgroup environmental sustainability of the CPR technical acquis process, although of course not as detailed as it has been discussed in the subgroup. Ahead of its time, because something was missing at that time, namely the assessment and verification of constancy of performance of the environmental sustainability. Since then, there have been numerous requests from manufacturers to EOTA to include life cycle performance data in EADs and ETA. And EOTA started to develop these EADs and even issuing ETAs, but for the reasons I just mentioned, the process could unfortunately not complete it. And as we will see in the next slide, this probably might change pretty soon. Now, however, other sustainability aspects than those, what I meant with the life cycle assessments performance data, have long been successfully covered in EADs and ETAs from EOTA. And let's just have a look at some examples. A case of reuse describes an EAD on recycled clay masonry units. And dealing with masonry units that are brought to the manufacturing plant after deinstallation and then cleaned, sorted, controlled, and packed again. There is an EAD about insulating boards made of 100% recycled polyurethane to be used as acoustic and thermal insulation. There are EADs, ETAs covering numerous innovative renewable construction materials such as sintered stone, wood, seaweed, or straw, as we see here on the picture. And as I'm from DIBT, I brought some pictures of construction products. DIBT was assessing them. So here we see straw, which is used as an insulation material. Aspects of the improvement of energy efficiency are also covered by EADs and ETAs. And here on the left side, we see an energy-oriented refurbishment of a historic building with a high-performance aerogel insulating plaster. Or here, on the other side, in order to increase durability of existing structures, EADs on retrofitting and strengthening were developed, and here we see an example of a shear connector for strengthening existing concrete structures by concrete overlay. Nevertheless, it remains an important goal for EOTA to be able to provide information on environmental sustainabilities in ETAs. And lately, we have come a lot closer to this goal because the European Commission services have announced that they are planning to introduce the missing AVCP system, which I was talking before, regarding the essential characteristic on environmental sustainability very soon. It's called AVCP 3+. Now, what also gives us an example and shows us that life cycle assessment data and technical specifications will be possible in the near future is the example of the standardization request regarding the space heating appliances. Here, the European Commission has included life cycle assessment indicators based on EN 15804 as essential characteristics under Basic Work Requirement 7. And it's quoted here that the standards under the standardization requests are pending for citation in the official journal. And just 1 day after I finished my presentation last week, I just learned that the standards, the series of standards I mentioned here for the space heating appliances are just published in the official journal. So this quote is already outdated. What also brings us enormously forward and advances the discussion in the European construction sector industry as a whole is the work around the horizontal CPR group on environmental sustainability. And I just would like to highlight here the main provisions that are already agreed on in this subgroup. The work started in October 2022, and since then there were 2 other meetings. The work program is divided into different milestones. In the milestone A, there is the task to identify the essential characteristics and environmental indicators to be included in future standardization requests. And what has been agreed on is that the indicators, which serve then as essential characteristics, should follow EN 15804 or according to EN 15804. In milestone B, it is about the determination of assessment methods, scenarios, reference service life. And here also EN 15804 is to be used or should be used as the assessment method that is agreed on. What is important to hear or to highlight here is the topic around the complementary product category rules, abbreviated by CPCR, which are to be included in the harmonized technical specifications. And this could happen in 2 different ways, either directly by setting the rules right into the EADs. So for all the different construction product groups, you set the rules for the declaration of the lifecycle performance data, or you give the reference to a standard that includes the CPCR. In milestone C, it is what I mentioned before. It is about the proposal for a new AVCP system 3+ for all products for environmental sustainability. And it also includes a draft for an amendment of Annex 5 of the existing CPR via a delegated act. Now, of course, the discussions are still ongoing and some issues are still open for discussion. What I would like to highlight here and what should be noted in principle is that the CPR currently interprets BWR7 only with regard to EN 15804. But of course, environmental sustainability is much more, for example, reuse or recyclability, which I mentioned before in the first slides, which is explicitly stated in Basic Work Requirement 7. Now, what framework conditions are needed and what is fundamentally missing from our EOTA's point of view or my point of view at present in order to provide information on environmental sustainability and technical specifications is the legal framework on AVCP 3+, which we've seen in milestone C. And here there are 2 options for the route. And one should be probably much faster than the other. The first one is the delegated act for a new AVCP system. And what I want to highlight here is that from the EOTA's perspective, what is missing and what is even not put really clear in the last draft that has been come up to last week is the topic around the assessment of the notified bodies, which are undertaking tasks under System 3+, and that they shall consider the European technical assessment as the validation of the assessment of the performance of the product. So there should be no double checking after the ETA. The other route is AVS 3+, which is just named differently, but it's the name in the future revision of the CPR. However, once the legal framework is in place with a delegated act for a new AVCP system or with the revision of the CPR, EOTA will be act quickly and can start walking. Let's just have a look on some benefits. It's my, not the last slide, the one before. Now, first of all, EOTA and its ETA contribute to the fact that environmental sustainability characteristics become part of CE marking. The ETA route, meaning the EAD development and the issuing of the ETA, is a fast and customizable process, and which brings me to the advantage that the ETAs can address special features of innovative products that cannot be covered in standards. And ETAs can also provide information regarding reuse and recyclability on a descriptive basis. Also, assessment of environmental sustainability can be included in the ETA at any time. And last but not least, at EOTA, expertise is available for sustainability assessments in all products groups. Now let's come to my conclusion. We have heard a lot about sustainability assessments in the past. And as I mentioned, EOTA has already developed proposals for the inclusion of life cycle assessment data for several EADs. EOTA can build on this experience. And we've also learned what sustainability assessment will probably look like in the future. What will be crucial of all these things are those who have to implement and live it in the end. Manufacturers, associations, authorities, and institutions. The sustainable use of our natural resources must become part of the DNA of our day-to-day business or activities. And the declaration of life cycle assessment data, as well as the, let's say, rules for reuse and recyclability of construction products are one piece of the puzzle. I'd say EOTA and the EOTA route can make a significant contribution to this, and I would say, let's be pioneers again. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre, for these inspiring words. Let's be pioneers again. Let's make sustainability part of our lives and of our industries. And actually, that brings me right into our panel discussion on empowering EADs and ETAs for a sustainable future. To all of you who are following us online, we invite you to send in your questions for the Q&A session that will follow this discussion. You will find the link in the description below the video. We look forward to your input. And now I'm delighted to introduce our panelists. Gwenole Kosigu, Director at DG GROW at the European Commission. Christoph Sykes, Director General of Construction Products Europe. Hugo Avalos, in charge of standardization in the Global R&D Department at Knauf Group. Friederike Knees, convener of EOTA's Sustainability Project Team PT12 from ZAC in Slovenia. And joining us once more, Dieter de Latauer, Chair of CENTIC 350. And moderating this panel will be Thomas Brun from ETA Denmark. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Thank you first, all of you joining us online for this interesting morning. Thank you for the keynote speakers for their interesting inputs. And following up on this panel discussion, I'm honored to be among you distinguished persons to have this discussion on some of these topics that go on. I know that you have combined a lot of experience and competence in this field, so I look very much forward to having the discussion with you, and I'm honored to be among you. So let's get started, and we'll have the next hour or so to discuss this topic. So first, Director Kosigu, just to set the scene from a broad perspective, we are in the process of having the new CPR going through the motions. So the overall goals of the Commission for promoting sustainability in the construction sector under the new CPR and the European Green Deal. What are the overall goals for the from the European Commission point of view?
Okay. I hope it works like this. Perhaps let's go back. This Commission mandate and priorities were actually a number of three. Green, digital, resilience. So if you take green, that was generated the European Green Deal and the accompanying policies. We've got several pieces of legislation, more than 30, that are being proposed by the Commission. So it's a huge effort. It's a clear priority that we all share. And you put that as a sort of general framework, and you look at the construction sector and the Construction Product Directive, I mean, I've been long dealing with the construction product directive. Some of you might think it's been too long on that file. But the thing is that I rarely heard praises about the CPD, despite the fact that I stayed long. So my predecessor had conceived the first CPD. It was revised. The present CPD is already a revised version. And I mostly only heard criticisms about the CPD, to the point where I came, and Chris will remember that, I came to the European Parliament meeting and said, listen, people, I'm completely open to all options. What do you want? I'm even ready to repeal the CPD. And then suddenly, I got plenty of letters telling me how fantastic this piece of legislation was. This being said, it's clear, and the CPD as it exists presents issues, and notably as far as standardization is concerned, where basically the system, let's be frank, is more or less blocked. It's not the only issue, but it's a big issue. And there was a need to actually have a profound look at it, deep look at it, and change things so that we finally come to a construction products legislation in the EU that functions. I'm not saying it will be perfect. I've got full confidence in the Council and Parliament saying that they will find the magic tool. But let's put it like that. We want to make considerable improvements. And the first thing was actually to make sure that it could serve our single market purpose. This being said, when you open the Pandora box, when you think of changing the legislation, you cannot do it without ignoring the political priorities that were that are constituting the framework in which we operate, and green is one of the main ones. This being said, we don't forget digital, by the way, because you all know about BIM and so on. So, I mean, we take that into consideration as well. And I heard a previous speaker talking about the need for harmonized data. That's really taken into consideration as well. So, when we opening the CPD, changing it to CPR, work on a single market, we of course introduce a sustainability objective. And it's even more important because if you look at the fact that buildings represent between 35 and 40% of energy consumption, of greenhouse gas emissions, that construction represents also between 35 and 40% of the waste being produced, it's not an ecosystem that can be neglected when you talk about the green dimension. So all this led us to make that a clear dimension of the revision. And basically what we have is to prevent information, sustainability information, that will allow, on one hand, member states to regulate at the buildings level, because I have to recall that they're very jealous about that, by the way, that we only have competence on the single market for construction products, but buildings is a competence of the member states. So we provide them with the tools so that they can actually do what is needed at the building level. And also we provide the users with information so that they can make much better informed decisions about construction products. So that's basically the issue. That's what we are trying to do. And I think it was very important not to miss that boat, given the importance of the construction ecosystem for the whole green dimension, and also for its competitiveness. Don't forget that, because if we're better from that angle, it will also make us more competitive.
Thank you very much. Lots of considerations that goes into this this first proposal, which we know now is going through the trialogue, and things are moving along. Can you give us a little bit of glimpse that goes through these the motions now? What do you see sort of in the immediate future about the prospects of the CPR? What are we looking into?
Can we get a copy?
Yes.
I'm an old commission official.
Yes.
I hope you don't want to get me sacked immediately.
No.
Of course, I'm in a difficult situation to tell you all the truth, or everything that's going on. And I'm also in the difficult situation because I don't have a crystal ball to tell you everything that will happen. So what I can tell you is that discussions are ongoing now between the three institutions, Council, Parliament, Commission, and trilogues have started. We had 2 already. Things are progressing well. I think as far as the sustainability dimension is concerned, it's clear that the 3 institutions have got the ambition of doing considerable progress in that direction. So from that point of view, there is a common ambition. As usual in these discussions, you've got nuances, you've got people who want something, people who don't want exactly the same thing. But I think let's not forget that the objective is shared. This being said, the Commission proposal was, I would say, reasonable, because I'm a Commission official. Some would consider not ambitious enough. Some consider we go too far away. That's the role of the game. We basically introduced the greenhouse gas emissions as the possible criteria. This, of course, will also be discussed with the two institutions. I mean, you might have heard that some would like more, so some would like to stay there. I mean, that's typically the type of things that are being discussed within trilogues. You would also have noticed that we were very much inspired by EN 15804, which was actually favored by a lot of member states, and I think a good share of industry as well. So, I mean, and we want to have the environment sustainability visible and available. So that's another element. So, I mean, we'll see how it develops. For us, what would be important, of course, I mean, what would be extremely desirable is that we've come to a conclusion at the latest in the first quarter of next year, for various reasons, including the fact that we've got European elections later on. And perhaps a request I would have is that for EOTA is that you already inform manufacturers when they work on ETA and EADs that if they are the early stages of them, they might actually have to check their requirements vis-à-vis the new CPR once it's available, because you know that's given the time the process takes, it's already good that they prepare themselves mentally and follow what's going on, and also including the conclusion of these negotiations that are taking place at the moment.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the profound advice. I'm sure that we will take that into account in EOTA, and a very smooth transition into a more specific subject on EADs and ETAs. But thank you for giving us this overall view on where we are and what we can see in the immediate future, fully respecting your position. We'll take the secrets afterwards. I would like to go a little bit more into the question of EADs and ETAs, and Mr. De La Tower, in the EOTA route caters for a smooth and agile possibility for putting innovative products on the market with a CE mark. With your experience from EOTA, what roles can EADs and ETAs play in mainstreaming the sustainability goals broadly on the marketplace?
Well, let's first look at, we have it's difficult because we have now the CPR under revision, so it's always a bit complicated to explain. But I think the main routes provided in the CPR is through harmonized technical specifications, which looks at SEN, and but that is for standardized products. So there is a big opportunity and a big room for a lot of innovative products, smaller products which are not standardized and who also want to have access on a European market, a common single market, and who wants to declare their performances in a structured, harmonized way, allowing it to be used at building level. What I think that the main challenges for EADs and European technical assessments is to really look at the needs of the user, the end user, the architect, the engineers, because often, definitely for innovative products, they need more information than just declaring performances, just declaring environmental impacts. They want to know how it is used, what is the intended uses, how can it be, well, how does it perform under certain loads. And there's a big variety all over Europe of construction practices. So I think that is like, and there's steps being made into that direction. But I think if this can be improved, then there's even a bigger opportunity or a bigger possibility for EOTA. Together with, as I said in my presentation, it's how to do this and make it feasible also for small and medium enterprises, and not just have it the EOTA route for the big companies who are also investing a lot and inventing a lot and innovating a lot, but also SMEs. And so the whole process should be feasible and overviewable and comprehensible. And I think it's a very complementary role next to the harmonized standardization routes.
Thank you very much. I also appreciate the fact that there are more aspects to look into innovative products from a sustainable point of view than just looking at the environmental aspects or the carbon emissions. I also reflected in your presentation about the danger of getting what we call carbon emission tunnel vision. So that we look at more perspectives of the products, and for sure a lot of these innovative green solutions, they come from small and medium-sized manufacturers. So there is a lot of effort going into that. In reality, I like to now turn to Mr. Sykes and Mr. Avalos for more or less the same question. From your previous experience with EOTA and ETAs, what role do you see that EADs and ETAs can play in promoting the green transition in the construction sector? I don't know which one of you. It's you. Good. Yes.
Good morning. Before I address your question, allow me to name the elephant in the room that's not been mentioned, and that's the crisis, the economic crisis that we're having at the moment. For 2 quarters now, 3 quarters of the year, our order books have been empty. Disregarding EOTA, SEN routes, there are no orders. Wherever you look to the north, you look to Germany, you look east towards Hungary and the rest, you look south to Italy and France. There's an enormous housing crisis. There's actually another event today on the scale of it and the human cost to EU citizens. And we could debate all day long about the purpose of EOTA and the purpose of SEN and the purpose of CPR. The real question is, what do we build, how do we build it, and how do we finance it? It's another way of looking at your question is, what we need is the willingness to engage in sustainable construction, address the costs, because the more expectations, I mean, addressing, Dieter's point, carbon, but how about water efficiency, energy efficiency, accessibility, blah, 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 a number of indicators. That's why the European Commission's framework for sustainable construction is called levels with the S in brackets, because you can fine-tune that sustainability set of requirements to your expectations. And of course, let's also mention the local characteristics and the type of building you want to build. So once we look from the right side of the looking glass, then we can easily see what EOTA and SEN can deliver. And of course, they should deliver to a level playing field. They're service providers to the industry. We are keen to deliver sustainability data. That's why, as our colleagues from the IB team very importantly underlined, Essential Requirement 7 has been in the CPR for a decade. Now, for various legalistic reasons, which we won't delve into this morning, it was never implemented legalistically, but the industry found a way to deliver that data, and they're called EPDs, as the whole of Dieter's presentation was about. We know that the EPDs and sustainability characteristics are embedded in the construction industry. Our clients require it, they wouldn't go without it, and we wouldn't go to the market without them. Now the question is, and we've been discussing the possibility of having it in a legal way, and again, we could redo the history of the CPR and the CPD. I mean, Gwen won't retire for a few months yet, and we could tell you stories, but it's there, it's crucial, and it's a holistic picture, a whole life cycle base for buildings. And once you understand the starting point, then everything falls in place. EOTA has a crucial role to play, but it's about delivering services to the industry, maintaining that LCA approach, and there's room for everyone, for all services. I would disagree with your comment about SMEs delivering, top of the range, innovative products. It comes from the very nature of any company to do R&D, and you could look. But again, I'll end where I started. We have a crisis. My members are telling me it's worse than 2008, And that took them 5 years to recover. And next year is going to be even worse. Think about the jobs involved in manufacturing plants, but also on the job sites. How do we address this in the election year? Because citizens are in need of housing. Long way to, a short question, but I hope.
Yeah, hello to all. Okay, your answer was very, very long and far away from the question. I will do for that a short question, a short answer. Sorry, I'm in the gypsum industry, and I want to give my point of view for a company. Yeah, I'm very, very happy with the job of EOTA. EOTA has helped us very, very much in all of ETAs and all of works that we have doing with them. I think it is a very, very important point that EOTA are working always together with the industry. They visit our factories, they visit our offices. They are very, very close with our technicians, and they help us very, very much. I'm happy with that, and I think in basic requirement on construction work 7, it will be the same. It could not be another way. Yeah, that can I say.
Thank you very much. I didn't mean to imply that that innovation was reserved for small and medium-sized enterprises, but thank you for the comment and also for the perspective on EOTA's work in future from an industry perspective. In reality, I wanted to ask the same question to our sustainability expert: the role of EADs and ETAs. What do they play in the green transition from the expert's point of view?
Yes, thank you for the question. So a lot has been already said. So I'll just go directly to the answer. Obviously, I have to emphasize that sustainability comes in very different shapes, a lot of properties, a lot of characteristics that have different ways to address. EN 15804 is one of the ways we are using at EOTA a lot. For EOTA, I think EOTA plays a crucial role in implementing the Green Deal, the green policies. Because we are addressing, on one hand, novel products, new products, this has already been said, and we also have a flexibility and chances to really come forward to the manufacturer. Of course, the key in that becomes transparency, becomes solid roots, and the work we have been doing in past 10 years actually led to something that when we were finished with that, we said we are ready. Now when this is relaunched, we picked it up and said, okay, we're still ready. Because apart from some let's say, minor changes that have been, I'm not talking about 3+ here, but I'm talking about the indicators, we went for the full scale all along. We went for the full life cycle all along. We went for the recyclability as well. So EOTA is ready, more or less, of course.
Thank you very much, Fredrik, for this. And talking about readiness, how prepared, again, for the Mr. Sykes and Mr. Avalos, how prepared is the industry to implement sustainability requirements under the current and future CPR?
Okay, it's okay. For sure, the industry is very, very well prepared. We already are started since years to go into recyclability and into all of the Green Deal, let's say. And I'm happy from that. And I think all of we want to be in a future green world, let's say. Yeah. I only have one point that I want to maybe I want to give to the policy advisors and so on, and it is that sometimes when we talk about product construction, we are thinking about bricks, plasterboards, gypsum, cement, steel. But there are companies like my company, they have more than 8,000 products, and some of them are staples, screws or small pieces, yeah. And how they influence, we have to think how they influence in the whole building, and because in the CPR we need to have an EPDs practically for all products. And an EPD, we were looking for that. An EPD, the cost for an EPD is between 4,000 and 10,000. It depends on the country. It depends on the product families and so on. Problem is if we are obliged to have an EPD for 8,000 products like staples or so on, they cannot influence in the whole building. It is a little bit difficult to think about that. Yeah? I think there are labels for products that they can influence in different ways in a building, and we have to think about that. That is my question. For sure, I'm happy to have a green world, and we will have, and we will go in this way. But as I said, please think about the cost and the influence for some kind of products, because all of them are construction products, and maybe it is difficult to have an EPD for all of them. Yeah,
I'm sure you're right, and I'm sure that there is a level of detail that needs to be discussed. Are there any comments from some of the panel to this?
Sure. Of course, green claims have been around as long as we have, and they were not all trustworthy. I'm being the devil's advocate now with the Commission sitting to my right. And of course, that led to legislation. Our clients, the citizens, were fed up with the green claims. They couldn't trust. And of course, for the construction product industry, it's crucial to have the client's trust. So of course, it's difficult, and we shouldn't preempt the final text because, of course, it's still under negotiations. But there are sectors like lighting surrounding us today. They weren't supposed, they're not even imagining that it will fall under the CPR. But as the definition says, if you're in a building and you're attached for a length of time, you're a construction product, then you fall de facto under the CPR. The lighting industry, at least for the lights within the building, will have to apply the CPR. If you don't apply the CPR, you fall under eco-design. So, in any case, we have to understand why it's there. We have to see it as an opportunity and seize it and run away, as we have done for the last decade, thanks to the work in TC 350 and the EPDs. So.
Yeah, I guess also the taxonomy will place requirements in that direction, but I just wanted to give first the floor to Director Cosico, and then afterwards.
Actually, Chris mentioned it at the end of his intervention, actually. These sustainability requirements and products, I can understand that it's boresome when you've got so many products to deal with, and can be costly as well. This being said, we should not look at the CPR in the vacuum. You've got the ESPR coming, Environment Sustainability of Products Regulation. So basically what we've been trying to do is to have with ESPR as much commonality as possible to reduce the frictions, to have this sort of common approach and be as close as possible. But let's not forget that the idea why we wanted to deal with sustainability under CPR and not only under ESPR is also because we wanted to take into account the specificities of construction products. So there is an advantage in having them in CPR and not in a horizontal piece of legislation, because that way the specificities of your sector is being taken into account.
Thank you very much. Mr. Latawa?
It was perfect. I have one here. It was the perfect setup. To the origin of your question was how well prepared is the sector. And then we can limit that to EPDs and the CPR. But it's important to remind that this is not the final goal. The final goal is not just for industry to deliver data. I mean, that is just a cost. And what is a cost for a company if there's no advantage? What is the added value of the EPD? The added value of the EPD is to be able to manufacturers to distinguish themselves at building level, architects, engineers, to design buildings in a more sustainable way. And that can have an effect on industry, on how the manufacturing process. And so that can be communicated in a trustworthy, transparent way. And so coming back to my what I said in my presentation is there, as of today, sufficient driver for this added value at building level? If I look, I just switch head now, and if I look in Belgium, we have an EPD program. We are in favor of EPDs. We have legislation on environmental green claims. And what we hear from industry is there's no sufficient demand because we make investments, green investments. We want to validate it, and there's no political will in some member states, some regions, whatever. I will generalize it to work towards to. And when I see then in France, I hear echoes from industry saying, well, okay, there's a target at building level, and it's coming back at EPD level. So we need to modify our production process. And so then we close a loop, and then you can create added values. And it's not just a cost, it's also a marketing instrument, and it's communication to the stakeholders or to the investors, etc.
Dieter, I mean, we should mention public procurement, which is
Exactly.
which is still looking at the lowest cost.
Yep.
And the Commission has had a go at sustainable public procurement, but it's not picking up. And maybe if I can preempt your next question and challenge our friends from EOTA is digitalization. I mean, with this huge tsunami of data coming our way, somebody mentioned to me the other day, she took a picture of a building and asked the artificial intelligence to give her a quote for the price of building that building. And it actually came back with a value. So this is today. By the time we get the CPR and we get our standards and we get the ADs ready, what the hell is this machine going to be able to do? Probably write the standards and the ADs. But so we need to have all these things in a digital format. And I mean, you know, future-proofing EOTA. I mean, we need digital formats.
Absolutely, yes, go ahead.
Just one word on public procurement, because I think it's particularly important. Actually, if you take all sectors, not only construction, public procurement represents 14% of European demand. So it can have an influence on the direction the market takes.
Absolutely.
The difficulties I've been confronted with with years of working, not only in the construction area, could mention two, for example. Two as good ones. The budget annuity principle that plays in the public service, which basically says, okay, I'm not going to think of over 20 years cost. I'm going to think about the cost which it costs once I buy, which is extremely limited. I'll give you an example. Railway, for example, if you have a contract for 30 years, including maintenance, you will have the top of the technology trains circulating for much less lesser cost to the public service buying it, and on top of that, you would reward competitors that actually respect that, also in terms of circular economy, etc. So that's second big problem. The level of information and qualifications of the people in charge of procuring. Because at national, regional, or local level, because very often they still believe that they're obliged by some type of European legislation to go for the cheapest price, which is completely wrong. And despite all the efforts we make in order to inform them that there are other criteria that can be taken into account, on the contrary, that's still not well known enough. And from that point of view, what we try to do with the SPR, and we're trying to do with sustainability requirements under CPR as well, is that traditionally we've got all these externalities that were not taken into account by the market, and actually to the detriment of European industry. So that's why I'm saying that these sustainability requirements are actually conceived as a tool to make it easier for you to demonstrate that you're competitive.
Absolutely, and there are many discussions that are almost a seminar in their own respect. The social sustainability that you were mentioning, the social part of that is a separate subject, more or less, and we could probably spend a few days on that. Also, how do we use AI in the construction sector? How do we ensure data quality, and how do we handle all the data that we're going to be faced with? Is probably also a couple of days of seminars as well, and maybe we won't even find a solution there. But I think that coming back to the ETAs and the EADs and what we see in the future, I think it plays a little bit into the value that you are talking about. ETAs, as it is now, is a voluntary means for manufacturers to CE mark their product. So, of course, it's important for EOTA and for TAPS to ensure that there is a value in having these ETAs. So it's a market-driven prospect to have an ETA, and we have to be conscious about this also in the future of the CPR. And I'm sure that most TAPs are actually quite invested in making sure that there is value in the ETAs, because otherwise we don't have anything to provide. And with that, Fredrik, I would like to sort of ask you a question about with the experience. Mr. Glosbard mentioned a few of the examples, but can you give a few examples of how EOTA has implemented sustainability previously? Maybe a few success stories.
Yes, actually, Andre did say a lot of these. Obviously, recycled bricks is the paramount case we have. We have been fighting for it for a long time, and it succeeded in the end. There are also other aspects, like all thermal insulation, for example, has something to do with sustainability. Then we have recycled polyurethane, as it was already said. So, unfortunately, we were not able to implement one, let's say, full life cycle EPD. Or EAD, due to not fully implemented principle. As I said before, we were ready years ago to do that, but this was not successful. Hopefully, it will be successful now, and I'm sure we will have a lot. And one thing that is very important for us as well is all these EADs are started as, let's say, individual requests, like quite tailored requests, quite tailored input data, and this is a big advantage from the EOTA standpoint of view, because we can really focus on that specific product. We can really listen to the producer, to the manufacturer. What are the specific things? What is the difference? And we can take that into account. So this is really, really important.
Thank you very much. And you also mentioned a little bit that we have been trying to implement BWR7 for a number of years, and it was also mentioned on previous occasions that we've got stuck with the AVCP systems, and now we have the proposal for AVCP system 3+. And Director Kosiku, could you? This is a proposal coming from the Commission, which is discussing, and how do you see the EOTA ETA route playing into that proposal? Do you have any thoughts on that, and how it's going to be implemented in practical terms?
Yeah, I mean it's still early days.
Absolutely.
But one thing, I mean, we're so often criticized to come too late with our things, so that industry doesn't have the time to prepare, that we already started working together with you on that before we have got a new CPR. So I mean that's so. So basically we are doing it for two reasons, because we don't want to wait until the negotiations for the new CPR are finalized. We will of course take that into account once we are there, but I mean, I would imagine that the approaches will be modified a bit or fine-tuned, but the general logic will not be considerably modified. And on top of that, under the present CPR, we've already got the tools that allow us to start the process, to initiate the process. So basically, that's the reason why we don't want to delay things. So, as you said, we're working on this ACVP 3+. We will, of course, take into account the work that is done on the new CPR, but also what has been done till now with the voluntary EPDs, because that's also something that needs to be taken into account. And as was mentioned, I think that was by Adrek Osman earlier on, we've already created this subgroup on sustainability recently at the end of last year. So basically we're working with stakeholders, with EOTA actually, which is part of it as well, in order to have a common approach about how we go about it. So I think that without going into the details of what it will look like, we're trying to put in place a process that will allow us to adapt and to take into consideration the needs of the sector. If there are weaknesses in that approach, please let us know, because we really want to work that together with you so that we arrive at that. And as far as EOTA role is concerned, I would say that as soon as we've got there, I mean, the structure stabilized, I think the EOTA role could actually be the way to test the approach so that we get experience of it.
Yes. Thank you very much. I assume industry has a point.
Well, it's not a point. It's Dieter mentioned amongst the plethora of legal issues, the Waste Framework Directive. And of course, we went to see DG Environment a couple of weeks ago because they hold the key to the Waste Framework Directive. And we opened their eyes to the fact that we don't have end-of-waste criteria. And of course, to close the loop and be very pragmatic, if you bring waste to a production site, then you need another certificate to say that you're a waste treatment plant. So they were extremely positive in understanding our request. They weren't so keen to deliver, so we'll have to see when the new commission comes in. But it's a crucial element. We need these end-of-waste criteria to close the loop. And there was something you mentioned about the business case of EOTA that I'd like to ask you, Gwen, if you allow me. There's this court case about the accessibility of standards being, should be delivered to all European citizens for the sake of information. We're awaiting the top authority has said it should be, but we're awaiting the final decision. So that will have a great impact on the harmonized standard. How will this have an impact on EOTA documents?
You will understand that as a commission official, I don't comment court judgments, especially when we don't have the court judgment. For the time being, we only know the Advocate General's opinion. So please wait a few weeks, and we should have the court of judgments, the judgment of the court, and from there on, we'll be open for comments, and about our approach. But I won't before a judgment.
But I can say already now that EADs are available for free already. So you don't have the same challenge. So they are accessible and most ETAs are as well. So yes. And for the next question, we were talking about AVC level 3+. Frederick, how prepared are the EOTA sustainability group on implementing this?
Yeah, 3+ essentially would mean that the assessment is done beforehand. This is standard way the EOTA is doing actually also for other characteristics. So this is nothing new for us. Of course, there are a lot of things to do, like verification lists, personals, and so on. But we have been not sleeping all these 10 years. We have been discussing and trying to form a kind of a help desk, a group or something like that, to help among the tops to establish, let's say, a line in which we can ensure best possible outcome at the moment. So we have prepared quite some time ago a verification list. Now it needs a little bit of rehaul, but still it's there. The declaration, inside the EAD model clauses, we have even written some requirements for aiming transparency, like limitations, like what is included, cutoff rules, and so on. So we have a set of, let's say, supporting tools for doing that. And the thing is that I think, again, I'll say again for the third time, I think we're quite ready for implementing that. Maybe not tomorrow, but very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Latauer.
Just a reflection on what I hear a lot, and is that we keep on talking on EPDs or the DOP in a very one-on-one way. It's like one product, one EPD, and we are doing this, and we are verifying this EPD. What I see coming, and it's an open question of how ready are we for that, is that when shifting to the CPR, it's not anymore voluntary, it's for all products, it's for all the product portfolio, those being covered by harmonized technical specification, be it by the EOTA routes on a voluntary basis, but it's immediately for a lot of products. And so manufacturers are trying to find solutions for that. And it's not longer one-on-one, let's do an EPD for one product, let's go for an ETA for one product, or it's for a portfolio of products. This has influences on calculation, and also on verification. And so my question is a bit bouncing back to, if I'm allowed to,
Sure.
bouncing back. Okay, how far are we in this reflection, and is this common or not? Out of curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, yeah, we have studied that, and for us the problem is we have tried, for example, to take one product and to do an EPD, to try to do an EPD with what we have today in the market. Yeah. We have several softwares, several databases, several hypotheses, and if you take one product and put in this software and then in the other software, you have different results. It's a little bit difficult to understand that, and at the end you have tables with numbers that practically nobody can understand that. And for one, and another thing is it is not only one EPD for each product. For each factory, if you have a product in several factories, you have to do more than. If you try to do an association, for example, EPD or something like that, it's not true, because you cannot say exactly the parameters of each product. That's the reason because I'm questioning that. In the construction industry, we say please or hear that we cannot start a house from the roof. Now we have the roof, yeah, we have the CPR, and we have not the basis to calculate that and so on. If we have a certain way to have that, to calculate that and to resolve that, then it will be easy. And maybe we can understand more of that. And the second point is we have to educate to the people, because sometimes when I go to on-site and for the controlling, quality insurance for the building, they said, give me your EPDs and all of your papers. And you understand that? No, I only put in the carpet and I give to the, so I put in my desk and so on, because it's finished. Nobody understands that. We have to educate the people, and that's very, very important.
I think that's a very crucial comment, that education is part of this, both in all levels of the value chain in construction. We are still in a business where, in the end, there is somebody actually doing something with their hands on the construction site to get this to work. So it's a long value chain. I understood that. Did you make a mark? Or thank you.
I'm aware of time.
Yes.
Hugo's right, and he said it in his first intervention. It's an issue of cost. EPD delivery is a business, a competing business, and various costs. Today, we're not selling products. We are not building the homes that we need to build. So in between, we need to find the citizens, make sure that he understands what should be built, where it should be built, and get the banks, get the EU institutions with the financing, the renovation wave, but make it bigger. And it would be a great message from the EU institutions, renewed Parliament, renewed Commission next year. A Commissioner for Construction, I've been calling it for how many years? 15 years. Sustainable construction as a goal, and implementation, as Dieter was saying earlier, implementation now of all the things that we want to deliver.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. On that note, I think the time is gone. It's a complex area, and lots of things needs to be done. I think we've been around the subject quite well. I think there is a positive development with the work done in TC 350, and the conclusion is more or less EOTA is ready for facing the challenges or the possibilities in assessing the sustainability claims made. So we are ready, and with that, I will leave the floor to Carmen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A big thank you to you all, also from my side. Let's take some questions from the audience. And here's the first one from the audience. We are a manufacturer of anchors and already have an ETA plus an EPD for our product. What would it need to integrate this into the CE marking? Quite far ahead. Who wants to take it?
Interesting question. Is there anybody who was would give an answer to that? Yes, please.
Wait for the final text of the revised CPR.
Yes, I think it's difficult at the current stage, but I think the aim is to be able to do that in future. So,
can I just add?
Absolutely.
I think it's already amazing. I think this company needs a compliment for having this EPD and having invested it in a time where it hasn't been mandatory, because now they are prepared and they can wait 6 more months for the outcome of the CPR, and they have all the experience and tools in hand. So I think this is positive, and it might be an example for others also.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty?
Yeah, I was about to say a very similar thing. So if they have, if you have both, if you have ETA and if you have also the EPD, this can be integrated once it's possible. There will be not a lot of work for you to do to integrate that.
Okay, I have a follow-up question, sort of, although it's from somebody else. When we move from the EPD to the ETA, we go to a one-shot assessment. Shouldn't there be follow-ups?
I'm not sure.
I think the question is if it goes into the direction of certification, where you have an initial assessment and then the assessment needs to be repeated to be sure that there's a consistency or match.
Yeah.
No, it's more like the factory production control combined with yearly audits.
So there will be audits on a regular basis.
I think so.
I think it's also under discussion. It's part of the AVS 3 Plus. So it's part of the...
That's being discussed at the technical level. It's clear that under ACV 3 Plus, because the performance is very much linked to the assessment of values that are being inputted and to the life cycle analysis, that there will probably it's very likely to have a third party control, because the approach is a bit different. And just to give you an anecdote, with nothing to do with construction, but I remember at the moment where the life cycle analysis were becoming in fashion, I had the visit of the paper industry who came with a life cycle analysis that they had performed, and of course the life cycle analysis was concluded that paperboard was the best material for packaging. A few weeks later, I got the glass industry. Guess what? And then the chemical industry came with plastic, and the three of them had done life cycle analysis, and the conclusion was each time their own product was the best. So that's the type of thing we would like to avoid within the CPR.
It emphasizes the need for a level playing field and transparent process, for sure. Yes.
Can I quickly rebound on that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think it's addressing a very important question, which in my view is a little bit not getting enough attention. It is the EPDs need to be trustworthy. And let's not forget the CPR, the main driver of the CPR for trustworthiness is the responsibility of the manufacturer. He is responsible at the base for what he declares. Of course, now we are entering not in something which is easily to be tested. It is a calculation and a complex calculation. So we could make the parallel to previous, say, like tensile strength and compression strength. Market surveillance will do random testing on the market, do a test, and then there's some pressure also from the authorities on the industry. But this is much more complex for such a calculation like a life cycle assessment. So this is like a piece of the puzzle, and then we could say, well, let's have a periodical assessment, verification, a renewal, but then we have the costs involved. So it's something which I think we need to balance, and we really need to find the sweet spot of combining everything. So good question.
So I give you one last one. Once the AVCP system 3 Plus has been confirmed by the member states, how long will it take to include BWR7 in EADs and ETAs?
Well, maybe, I don't know, Friedrich can maybe answer, but it's as soon as the manufacturer applies for it, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
From our side, yes. As
So-
soon as we have application, and of course normal processing time.
Normal processing time.
Yes.
I'm not sure I would agree with you.
Thank you. I think we will leave it as that. Thank you all for your questions. I think we have seen that sustainability is a complex subject and that there are still quite a lot of topics to discuss. The ETA route enables innovators to propose proactive solutions, and hopefully together we can transition to a green construction sector. It's time for, I think, welcome 20-minute coffee break after this intense discussion. Take the opportunity to stretch your legs and see you back here at 11:25. Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We will now change our perspective to look at the ETA route in a global context. At EOTA, we have long been aware that manufacturers from all over the world request ETAs. The engaging success stories that our stakeholders shared with us inspired EOTA to ask the Center of Economic Studies, CECIL in Milan, to do a pilot study on the global reach of ETAs. The study is not out yet, but we are happy to have Alessandra Caputo, senior researcher at CECIL, here to give us a sneak peek into their findings on ETAs in global markets, a data-based analysis.
Thank you, Carmen, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, today I would like to provide you with an overview of the ETAs in the global market. So basically, I will start from really an overview of the evolution of ETAs and how they've been requested by manufacturers in non-EU countries, and then we will move to the economic relevance of specific product areas codes, so of specific construction product markets, in particular PAC 4, so the thermal insulation products, product area 9, about cladding, and then the timber product, fixing, and fire stopping. For these 5 specific product areas, we will look at their economic relevance in the global market, as well as I will provide you with a snapshot of who are the key players at the current stage and the emerging countries that we are observing. And then I will provide with some main takeaways for further discussion. So, starting from the ETAs in the global market, we have observed that actually between 2013 and 2022, an increasing number of manufacturers located in non-EU countries have started requesting more and more ETAs. Actually, between 2013 and 2022, overall 1,347 ETAs have been issued to manufacturers in non-EU countries. And if we compare this figure on the overall number of ETAs ever issued, ETAs in non-EU countries represent 12% of the total number of ETAs. This implies that actually the relevance of the ETAs in the global market is increasing, and non-EU manufacturers are more and more interested in the ETA route. But it is also important to say that the relevance of the ETA route in the global market is heterogeneous across product areas, meaning that this varies across the product areas. As you can see from the graph, what we do observe is that the product area covering the fixing products as well as the fire stopping products are the 2 product industry where a highest number of ETAs have been issued in non-EU countries since 2013. But at the same time, another interesting feature is that when we compare the numbers of ETAs ever issued within a given product areas with the overall total amount of ETAs issued in that specific product areas, what we do observe is that there are other product areas codes such as the fixed firefighting equipment and the geotextile products, where we observe that the share of ETAs in non-EU market is larger as compared to the share of ETAs in these product areas in the EU. This implies that for these product areas, we have a sort of a wider interest outside Europe as compared to European member states. Also, another interesting feature is that the distribution of ETAs in non-EU countries is not only heterogeneous across product areas, but also across non-EU countries. Indeed, as shown from this map, we can see that a significant number of ETAs has been issued in countries such as Australia, China, Taiwan, India, and the United States. And in these countries, indeed, we have that between 50 and 80 ETAs have been issued between 2013 and 2022. Overall, all countries are actually increasingly requesting ETAs. And in particular, this has been true for China, which is not only a key player in the ETA market, but also a country which is increasingly requesting ETAs, but also for Brazil. So for Brazil, for the time being, the number of ETAs issued today is not that high as compared to the other countries like Australia, but at the same time, what we are observing is that the number of ETAs that has been requested has grown with very high growth rates. So we can suppose that in the future, even Brazil will be a country where a high number of ETAs might be issued. However, we have seen so far that the distribution of ETAs is heterogeneous across the product areas and across member states. Another interesting point is when we look at the distribution of ETAs by product areas within each country. As we see, what we notice is that, of course, ETAs covering the fixing products are overwhelming almost in all non-EU countries. So this is the largest share that we have. But there are some exceptions. For instance, we have Canada, where a larger number of products is instead, a larger number of ETAs is instead covering products within the far-stopping product area. Also Serbia. Serbia is another interesting point because we see that in Serbia, no ETAs were issued covering the fixing products, while instead most ETAs were covering the thermal insulation products. And also in the US, we have that the distribution of ETAs there issued cover different products in an almost homogeneous way. Moving to the production and trend patterns, what we do observe by narrowing the analysis only on 5 product industries, so again, the thermal insulation products, cladding, timber products, fixing, and fire stopping, we have observed that over time, so since 2010 until 2019, the global production has increased by 76% at an average annual growth rate of 6.9%. This is the global production. When we narrow the focus then on non-EU countries, we observe that there, the value of production has doubled in 2019 as compared to 2010. Also, another important aspect is to what extent the output of these product areas has been produced in non-EU countries as compared to the overall market. And there we see that the share of production manufactured in non-EU countries has also increased from 2010, when it was 76%, to 2019, when it reached 86%. This implies that non-EU countries are playing an increasing key role in the global market. Among non-EU countries, it is also worth mentioning the fact that Asian and Pacific regions are those that are driving these patterns. In particular, we have China there that is playing a very key role. Not only the production has been increasing, but also the trade. So when we look at trade, we look at the EU trade flows for these product areas from the EU, within EU, so we talk about intra-EU trade, and from the EU to non-EU countries, so extra-EU trade. By looking at the time span between 2000 and 2022, what we have observed is that actually the cross-border trade for these 5 product areas has increased, both internally and externally. But still today, the intra-EU trade constitutes the largest share of commercial flows. Another interesting aspect is to what extent the distribution of ETAs requested by manufacturers relate to the economic relevance of this product area. So what we have, what the evidence has suggested is the fact that ETAs are usually requested by countries where we have larger product market size and by countries that have stronger relationship with the EU member state. What does it imply? This implies that whenever a country plays a key role in the global market or a key role as an EU trade partner, this country is more likely to request an ETA. Indeed, as we've seen before, we have that China is among the key players in the market and is also a key country in terms of number of ETAs requested. At the same time, we have few exceptions in the sense that we have some countries that, even though are not playing such a key role in the global market or as EU trade partners, are still requesting a high number of ETAs. And what the evidence has suggested is the fact that in these cases, the driver is the fact that these countries are looking at the ETA route as a best practice example. So in a sense, the request of ETAs is driven by multiple aspects. On the one hand, we have countries that see the ETA route as a best practice example, and on the other, there is also a relationship that relates to the economic relevance of the country in the global market. When it comes to the main player, what we see is that concerning these 5 product areas, China and the US are the two key countries with respect to the production, the number of enterprises, extra-EU export, and extra-EU import. This implies that overall, for most product areas, these are the countries where EU member states are exporting the most and from which they are importing the most. This said, depending on the product area we analyze, we also see that other countries are emerging. For instance, we have Mexico under PAC 9, so for the cladding products, where indeed Mexico is characterized by the highest number of enterprise within the sector. Another important aspect concerns the emerging players, because when we look at the growth rates in terms of production output, in terms of number of active enterprise or the trade flows, what we do observe is that, first of all, Egypt is a country that, even though today is not playing still a key role, its growth rates are really interesting and suggest that in the future is going to acquire increasingly a key role in the overall market. Indeed, it shows really high growth rates in terms of total output for the thermal insulation products, cladding products, and timber products, but also the number of active companies in all the 5 product areas have very high growth rates. Other key emerging countries in terms of production are, for instance, the Philippines, Iran, and Kyrgyzstan. But these countries differs depending on the product areas that we are analyzing. Likewise, when we look at the number of companies, we see that in Nepal and in Peru, the number of companies are increasing when we look at the cladding products as well as timber products or fixing products. Whereas when we look at the trade flows, we see that the European member states are increasingly trading with countries such as Morocco, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and Vietnam. So already these figures suggest that in the future, the global market might differ from what we are observing today. So moving to the main takeaways, what we have learned from our study is the fact that extra-EU countries are increasing their market share in the total output, are increasing their relevance, and also the fact that in non-EU countries, manufacturers are becoming more and more interested in the ETA route. So we see indeed that the ETA route is increasingly having a high relevance outside Europe. However, as we have seen, there are differences across product areas and countries. So the interest of non-EU countries in the ETA route varies across product areas and countries. What does it mean? It means that if the ETA route has to be strengthened outside Europe, perhaps it might be advisable to diversify this internationalization strategy by country and product area. And for instance, it could be important to start with countries that are the main trade partners and in product areas that are the key in the market. In this way, both the European member states and non-EU countries could benefit from the promotion of the ETA route in non-EU countries. And the last point is the fact that among non-EU countries, among the main EU trade partners, it could be it could be relevant to start focusing on countries that do not have a national certification system and that can perhaps look at the ETA route as a best practice. And I will stop here and give the floor back to Carmen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Alessandra, for these interesting insights. You have given us a lot of input for the following panel discussion, Innovative Construction Products and Global Markets. Before we delve into this discussion, I will answer a few practical questions from the audience. One is, yes, the presentations will be available after the event. And the second one is that you can interact by asking questions. Following this panel, you have a link for this in the video description. And now it is my very great pleasure to welcome our second round of panelists to the stage. Ulrich Burgund, Chairman of Construction Fixings Europe. Kees Bott, Technical Officer at the European Association for Passive Fire Protection. Joining us once more with his insights on global markets, Hugo Avalos from Knauf Group. And also with us, Alessandra Caputo, Senior Researcher at CICIL. And we have someone joining us remotely from Australia, Professor Imad Gatz, the Dean of the School of Engineering at Swinburne University of Technology. Good evening, Mr. Gatz.
Good evening.
And finally, let me introduce our host, Karsten Kartage from the IBT.
Okay, so welcome to the second panel discussion today. Hopefully everybody can hear me. It's of course also a pleasure for me to welcome you for this discussion today, especially also Emad. How is it on the other side of the globe? Is it already late evening? Normally you should go to bed now. Well, before we start with the discussion, I would like to repeat some essential results of the study, maybe to start with the discussion. For me, it's quite interesting that an increasing number of manufacturers around the world are now showing interest in the ETA route, and especially the number of ETAs that have been issued is quite impressive for manufacturers from non-EU countries. It's more than 1,300 ETAs, which is really nice for EOTA. And then the increasing numbers of ETAs issued in non-EU countries suggests that ETAs are becoming more and more relevant for manufacturers outside the European Union. And last but not least, the ETA route could be promoted in the main EU trade partners, which is important for me, especially if the relevant countries do not have a national certification system. This strategy could benefit both the European member states and non-EU countries. Well, now I would like to start with some questions. First, maybe with questions for the industry representatives. Do your experiences with your product area code coincide with the results of the study just presented, for instance, with regard to interest for ETAs in non-EU countries? Maybe Mr. Burgund, you could be the first to answer this question.
Thank you very much. Well, I think it's a great study, and I'd like to congratulate you for the in-depth work of it. It is, of course, a perspective from a statistical point of view. I think that's the source of information you have access to, and I think our experience matches with respect to that. On the other hand, I feel that's a sort of outside-in perspective, which means companies looking from outside the EU into the EU and try to make business and consider ETAs to be relevant to make business in the EU. At the end of the day, the industry perspective, the European industry perspective, is the other way around. Basically, we are in Europe, all those EADs and ETAs are made for us or developed for us, and we would like to use them to make business also inside Europe, but also outside Europe. So it's a different perspective. And what you have found out in your study, I think, is especially in those countries where you're lacking systems of qualification, they are looking for best practice, exactly what you mentioned. And European technical assessment in EADs, honestly speaking, are considered for certain product sectors to be really best practice. And that's the reason why those countries jump on it and say, well, okay, why not taking this before reinventing the wheel? And that's the momentum we like. And from an industry point of view, the best way to be business-wise successful is set the standard, develop your business. That's a sort of approach. Thank you.
Yes, of course. You can also give a second answer to the question.
I am from the gypsum industry and I'm from a company. And under my point of view, the ETAs they transmit insurance for the products for the kids, and yeah, of course, people we are working in all of the world, and people our partners outside from European Union, they use the ETAs, and ETA is not always okay. Here we take them for CE marking, let's say, yeah, for CE marking. But outside in the European Union, they take the indicators, they take all the calculations, the test, which is the basis from this ETA, and that are very, very, very good basis point to ensure the product. Our products here in Europe sometimes are also they have more cost to export to third countries. But if you can demonstrate with these kind of documents, like an ETA, that they have a very, very good quality and they are under audit and so on, we have very, very high chance to sell that kind of products. I think an ETA give us a very, very good advantage to outside of the European Union to sell our products. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's also quite clear that we have to distinguish between ETAs from non-European manufacturers that are used in the EU. There's, of course, both interesting, the technical content and the CE marking, but outside the EU, it's quite clear, as you said, that the technical content is the main focus then of the use of these ETAs.
You want me to top it off from an industry perspective?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. So let me repeat the compliments to Alessandra and your company for the study. So the customers of our customers, so to speak, are data hungry. And if anything an ETA provides, it's a lot of data and a lot of detail. So, and that comes with a standard of quality that EOTA provides. So the compliments also to you, Carsten, and the entire EOTA organization. There was a phrase like, is it especially useful for countries that do not have a high standard of certification, say in fire protective products? I would argue that even in countries that do have a high standard, ETAs are very, very well appreciated and recognized. And that, our experience, I guess, but maybe as a company, maybe not necessarily as the European Association, is that the study has only scratched the surface. I would argue there are much more demands that are underneath the surface, which just need a little bit of push from us as a kind of an outreach, say from within EOTA and maybe also with other stakeholders, to push also what is behind the ETAs, which is the entire CPR, say, realm. Not easy to explain, as we heard this morning, but out of the 7 basic work requirements, at least basic work requirements number 2, safety in case of fire, is well known. It was in the CPD even. There was a lot of interpretive documents there, a wealth of knowledge, which I think also EOTA takes to heart. So I can talk for hours of this, and I may get ahead of the quality of ETAs, and what I think the phrase was that they used is the best kept secret, that we keep sort of the cards on our chest, and that's we should be much more outgoing and promote ETAs and what is behind it outside Europe. The countries which you alluded to, where to go to first, well, I guess that's a matter of the countries that ask for it, basically, whether there is a large market or not. Again, it's probably the best kept secret. So where to go to, I don't know, but call me and I'll jump on a plane.
Okay. Thank you, Kees. Then I have another interesting question for you. Can you provide examples linked to specific construction products or product groups? And there's a second part of the question, where do you see special demand from non-EU markets? Maybe again in the same order, if you like.
Well, at the end of the day, the companies go where they can find business, where they can find a sort of level playing field and fair competition. I think if you take your product and you go to a market where there are big potential, but the rules are not really sound and are tweaked in one way, you don't go there. So the probability of making successful business is very low. So coming back to ETA, so ETA is a reference point to make business in terms of you define the level playing field. You say that's a procedure to qualify a product. That's a procedure to have production control, etc., etc. So, and that's a well accepted level worldwide. And you go there where the countries accept this level. And where you can then invest into people, invest into product and development. And based on this, I think this is a place where best practice is make ETAs and EADs to be referred to, acceptable level playing field, and then you go there. So that's the momentum, that's the mechanism which is going to help.
Hugo, you were first.
Yeah, okay. Under our experience, under my company, we have found that facades and claddings, there are two big markets. People of our partners from Africa, Asia, and South America, they are using our ETAs as document to justify the quality of and to sell facades. That's very, very clear. We have a very, very big experience with EOTA. We have two ETAs from facades and claddings, and they are very, very much used and demanded from, as I said, South America, Africa, and Asia, all of the world. And then another point, now we have demand from a product they call rooftop. We have some products for rooftop, and people from Chile and people from Asia also, they are demanding an ETA for that kind of products. And another ETA that are demanding now, and we have to talk with EOTA, are the ethics. Ethics systems with a lightweight, or ethics on lightweight systems. It is very, very well demanded, and I think we will ask for an ETA for that.
So again, there's a lot of grass that was already cut in front of me, but that's no problem. That creates the level playing field, perhaps. That's okay. Easy joke. No, coming back to countries where to go to. Indeed, I guess some level of oversight and independent control, policing, that would help to explain the added value of ETAs. And that's what I said before. And that's also what your study, I think, shows in the US and in Canada. I would say the Americas as a whole, although there are countries in the South America where the policing might be taken a bit differently. Okay. Nevertheless, I would argue that a lot of companies would be interested to show the added value in the Americas. Also in the Far East, and that sort of gives the two sides of the globe where you should go and where ETAs are appreciated. If only because, again, we're talking, or I'm talking predominantly on fire protective products, there is a need to explain how products, when mounted and fixed in end-use conditions, actually perform, and that is exactly what ETAs can provide. And again, a lot of countries, not countries per se, but say authorities having jurisdiction in those countries, they would like to see a detailed level of information on what certain products and certain end applications can do, and ETAs provide this intel. There is room for addition, extension, expansion on ETAs, so that's something that the industry would like to discuss with EOTA. So yeah, maybe leave it at there, and I'm not trying to sit on your chair, Karsten, but maybe we should ask from an academic perspective what is thought from the other side of the globe.
Yeah, but of course, but I think we have these questions at the end of the discussion. Okay. As you like, yes, of course. We can ask Professor Gett, of course, also now. Emad, what do you think? Did you hear the question from Kees Boos?
Thank you. I did hear the question. There are certainly different perspectives across the continents. However, I fully agree with the view that the ETAs provide that level of confidence, that level of robustness for end users. However, probably in Australia, ETAs at the moment are limited to certain products, and I'm happy to expand on that. But we see that there are a whole lot of opportunities that we can take best practice, which what Uli said, and use that for a range of other products that are sourced from Europe or sourced from elsewhere.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I have some more interesting questions for you. So, Kees, you are still not sitting on my chair. Okay. How useful are the product area code fact sheets to you? Do you see a benefit in EOTA monitoring the trend in the fact sheets? Mr. Burgund, maybe you again first.
Yeah, I think I saw these type of investigation from that angle for the first time. I think it's a first step. There's, as Kees mentioned already, there's much more room to go into depth and give some indication on what is driving success, what is driving success of certain documents, and what is needed to, let's say, repeat that sort of success in other product areas. I think that it deserves a little bit more investigation into that, because the complexity goes beyond what we see based on statistical results. I think we need to share with you, let's say, other environmental information, and then I think these fact sheets can be used as clear guidance in order to say why is this successful or why is this not successful. I think that's sort of, and the complexity when we remember what has been discussed this morning before in terms of sustainability, you can be sure, I guess, that all the non-European countries, they closely look what we are doing or not doing, depending on what is your point of view. I think best practice can be prepared here, and I think that's maybe an instrument how to share what we are doing and to indicate what are the elements of success.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Anybody else? Kees, do you still have an answer to that?
What can I say? Repeat with different words. But yeah, the study is one thing, and I suppose, I'm not sure if you travel to a number of countries, especially the countries that were successful, but I would recommend that in order to go to the level of detail that we might want to have some face-to-face visits or bilateral calls. It doesn't necessarily need to be on the airplane, but yeah, some level of detail you can only grasp when you eyeball. Sorry, you're in my line of fire, Carsten. When you eyeball people, then you get to go a little bit deeper in questions and why is something a success and why is it failing. But as a first step, again, complements with the study, and I think speak for the entire industry. We'd like to see more of these reports coming out in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah, I can reply Hi.
Yes, of course.
First of all, I have. First of all, I would like to thank you for the compliments. And concerning indeed the analysis that we have carried out, we are aware of the fact that we are providing today just an overview of how the market are shaped and what we can expect in the future from a statistical perspective. But I totally agree the fact that then further initiatives to speak with manufacturers and understanding really the drivers of what we are observing at the macro level are needed. To this end, I would also like to add that in 2020, we carried out another studies where we had bilateral calls with manufacturers, with associations, together with the survey. And from there as well, even though the focus was more on European member states, we had some aspects from non-EU countries. And there really, again, the relevance of the ETAs as a signaling effect of the quality of the products came out. So just to also go back to the previous question, the fact that indeed ETA abroad are seen as a signal for the quality, so are also sort of a certification that provides added value to companies non in the EU.
Okay, thank you. Nobody else? Okay, then I would like to continue. How does the ETA contribute to good standing of EU products in international markets? And what should we do so the ETA can even better serve to facilitate international trade? So 2 questions in one. So maybe now you can start first.
Okay,
like.
I think they give always very, very technical details, and it is very, very good for us. I think we already answered this question. They give a lot of security, quality, insurance, and they give confidence to the countries. I think it is the best point for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's tangenting off topic a bit, but then you correct me if I do so. But there are, say, competing standardization bodies out there outside Europe, which do have a kind of a marketing strategy to provide similar level of detail, if that's not too cryptical, what I'm trying to say.
Can you repeat it, please?
So and that's where I suppose on the wealth of knowledge and expertise and high level of quality that we have within Europe and where EOTA certainly is a key contributor, that we have to be more outgoing with this and be a bit more proud of what we can contribute. That said, in order to make that accessible to, say, the customers and the customers of our customers, which is quite a large number of stakeholders, whether it's someone that installs our product as an installer or a contractor, or authorities having jurisdiction that needs to look at building permits and whatnot and gather all the information. It's not self-evident that they can find their way either through one, say, member of our association, one specific company, or can find this level of intel in, say, a broader context hosted by one of your members as EOTA as a whole, as an organization. So it's the level of intel that we have, and then make that accessible and promote it. That might quickly ramp up the number of requests for ETAs outside Europe.
Well, if I try to build on what Kees mentioned here and be slightly even more specific here, so I think last year we had a presentation from Shahin Monian from the International Code Council Evaluation Service from the US. This indicates clearly the direction, basically, and it was a reference and a link which is created and established between EOTA and ICCES. But there are other countries, there are other big countries where we might think about doing something similar and create, let's say, relationships also into India and into China and into whatever, Indonesia, you name it. These are countries which are relevant, they are of a decent size, and not ignoring the competition between ICCS and the European approach. ICCS is doing this. They have offices around the world and they do promotion tours there. Why not something on the EOTA level for us, for the Europeans? I think we can be proud of what we do here. We need to say it slightly more louder outside of Europe, and I think the success could be even much bigger.
Okay, thank you very much. To what extent does a strong ETA in Europe correlate with a high standing of the ETA in third countries? Should EOTA and the stakeholders envisage special...
We should, because of the timing, go to Mr. Gatz.
Okay. Time is running. I'm sorry for that. Okay, then, Emad, I have to continue with some questions for you. The Australian construction sector has adopted the ETA as a verification for certain product areas. What were the reasons behind this decision? For which product areas in the ETA, is the ETA currently recognized in Australia? What are Australia's plans for the future? I'm sorry, 3 questions in one. Hopefully it's not too much. Otherwise, I can repeat it question by question.
Oh, thanks, Carsten. And it's about 10 p.m., so I appreciate the help there.
Are you already tired?
Okay. My apology that I'm not with you in person, but thank you for the opportunity to share our journey with you and also on attending online. Probably our journey with ETA started about 10 years ago when we commenced working with key manufacturers and suppliers of structural anchors to harmonize a design and a specification of such products in Australia. We had in the market about 10 years ago products that were pre-qualified according to Australian standards and specifications in accordance with American and European pre-qualifications. So we could find the one product having 3 different capacities, for example, depending on how it is pre-qualified, and that was counterproductive. So we spent about a year or so with the key suppliers, key manufacturers, to look at what the merits of each methodology is, with a specific focus into trying to come up with just one approach that would be suitable for the country, not only for that time, but also for the future. And while we're working with many competing interests and commercial investments, etc., as a country, we've decided to essentially adopt the ETA approach for anchors, mechanical and chemical anchors. And that was the right decision. Then this was taken up by standards and incorporated into our regulations. So now in Australia, it is a common practice for any safety critical anchor, an ETA would be required. Our journey was assisted quite a lot by the knowledge and expertise that was made available through our friends and colleagues in Europe. Particularly, I'd like to acknowledge 2 people here, being yourself there, Carsten, but also Uli from Hilti at the time. And we did need to have not only just the technical knowledge and background in the literature, but we also needed that practicing experience, the lived experience through the expertise of the individuals. What we're to in the future, we see a lot of merits in harmonizing testing and evaluation methods for building products. And given the size of our market in Australia here, we see a great deal of value in adopting or adapting best practice. And that would be best for our community, for end users. So we look forward to probably a greater level of harmonization across not only the specific building products, but expand that into others. And that we see is a value add to both the local community here, but obviously across the globe.
Thank you very much. I have 2 more questions for you. The next one is that the Cecil study states as one of its findings that the ETA is considered as a best practice in the Australian construction sector. Do you support this, and which features of the ETA are especially valuable to the Australian market? Maybe some or part of this question was already covered by your answer you gave, by your previous answer, but maybe you have something to add to this question?
Sure. They certainly support the conclusion made there, but I see that as a trilogy, three pillars. The first one is that the data provided is robust and based on transparent test and evaluation methods. So that's number one. The second is the quality assurance system that sits alongside the testing and evaluation, and that is a surety of the product in the market is the same product that was tested. And the third one, and that is a product, the data provided for similar products are presented in a consistent and a clear manner. So one can compare one product to another, but also having the installation requirements clearly articulated. So these 3 pillars make the ETAs very attractive for our market here.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question. Europe plans to include life cycle assessment into the ETAs. Do you consider this to be an interesting feature, not only for the Australian, but more generally for global markets?
Sure. Not dissimilar to Europe and other parts of the world. There is we're pushing very hard towards a net zero economy. So that is this is attracting a lot of attention. However, from my perspective, from my point of view, probably we need to look at the big ticket items to get the maximum impact. There are many products that go into a building or an infrastructure project. So we would need to prioritize our efforts to avoid the greenwash where sometimes that happens. So I think the feature of including life cycle analysis that would be most positive, and I think it will be driven probably by the industry before things do get regulated in some markets. So fully support and fully endorse.
Okay, thank you. I think that was now the last question.
Yes, and time is up, but I would maybe, if you allow me the little discretion, to give the panelists the opportunity to pick up one of the remarks from Professor Gatt, to have a little interaction. If there's some point you would like to comment on, please feel free.
Maybe I have one small remark or a question. I think you specifically alluded to anchors and ETAs related to anchors. What would be your opinion, and I'm putting my hat now on, and that's why I'm sitting here as the European Association for Passive Fire Protection. Would you have any comments on ETAs related to fire protection? Is that something that you see of value, or any comment you can give on that sector would be highly appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. We certainly see the trilogy of the ETAs would be applicable to every product. However, when it comes to the fire area, we do see some significant differences in regulations from certainly between Australia and other countries. So there's a little bit of work to probably harmonize, unify the some of the design rules, and from that probably the product specifications would fall into place. So in some instances too, we do see some variations from one state to another. So I think there's a little bit of work to get our house in order locally before we would look at more global harmonization.
Thank you. So I thank you for this enlightening panel discussions. For me, I have two main takeaways. One is with ETAs and EADs, we can set standards also that illuminate across Europe and beyond. And EADs and ETAs satisfy informative needs for a data-hungry industry. Now, we will take some questions from the audience. The first one, I think, goes to you, Alessandra. The slides show data for selected product areas. Is there more data available?
Yes. Yes. No, yes, obviously. We have started with those two product areas just as a pilot exercise. Of course, the analysis can be enriched to cover first the other product areas that are covered by EOTA, but also to cover additional indicators. So, for instance, you may want to look at the value added, you may want to look at the investment value that are done in each specific product area. So yeah, my answer is definitely yes. It's a matter of, again, reconciling what you have in terms of ETAs with what you have in terms of data availability on the market. So it's just a matter of how to pick the right data and make a link between the data at the product level and the data on the ETA. But data are there.
Okay. Now, the next question, I think many of you could answer it. Is a powerful ETA in Europe important to be powerful outside Europe?
Sorry?
Is a strong ETA inside Europe important to be strong outside Europe, is the question.
Well, I can answer this very short. Yes, it is, Just try to imagine if the value of an ETA in Europe would be zero. What would be the logic to sell this to other countries? The logic is not there. So if at home the ETA is worth nothing, it cannot be worth a big value outside Europe. So that's very easy to answer.
Can I quickly expand on that?
Sure.
We just had a reaction from Professor Gad on the fire protective issue, and he mentioned something like get our house in order first. Well, ETAs certainly have contributed to getting our house in order in Europe. So we're definitely, I think, in a state of play where we can help to get your house in order. Not as a missionary, say, I don't know what type of action, but certainly we're happy to contribute and well, explain to you the pitfalls that we have encountered and that you can easily step over or bypass. So certainly our stronghold here is what we need to cherish, and only from a strong position we can explain benefits to other sectors and other geographic areas.
Thank you. I will admit one last question. I think it's the host who will need to pick that up. What are EOTA's plans to promote ETAs in non-EU countries?
Well, I think I'm the host, so... Or are you the host,
No,
Kees?
no, I'm stepping away.
Okay. Now, the answer is quite simple. Of course, we will analyze the results of your study, Alessandra, in the near future. And then I think based on the results, we will develop some kind of roadmap in order to promote the ETA route worldwide. And of course, we will also inform you about these results and the roadmap. Okay, that's it so far.
Thank you. Thank you. This concludes our second session. We are now nearing the end of this meeting. it was enriching to discuss these important topics together to see how we can shape a successful future together. On a practical note, a recording of this event will be available in the next couple of days, and the Cecile study we have talked so much about lately will be released at the beginning of December. So stay tuned. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome back on stage Sebastian Wall, EOTA's president from ITB Poland, for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you very much. Thank you also to all speakers and panelists of the second panel. To be honest, the discussion that you had already was very, very interesting. As we have learned today, the technical robustness of the ETA sets a kind of a global benchmark. This is what inspired us to explore new avenues for promoting innovative European construction products on the international stage. The Cecile study that will be available at the end of this year explores the global reach of ETA based on scientific data. As Karsten already said, we will stay in touch with our stakeholders, with you, to verify if and how we can develop it further. And ladies and gentlemen, as this event draws to a close, please be assured that EOTA will continue to be at the service of construction industry. We appreciate the open discussions, the dialogue that we can have together with our stakeholders. The understanding this creates is really essential. So is joining hands with our old, but also with our new partners, especially when we meet new challenges like implementation of the new CPR or finding more long-term solutions for the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are eager to continue and expand our work together. Thank you very much for joining us today.